In 2191, Earth's blissful existence was governed by a powerful master computer. Then one day, something went wrong with the master control program. Chaos ensued as people panicked. Nova was summoned. Nova, you must contact 6 agents that are hiding in the 6 sectors protecting the master computer. Your contacts are John Gordon, Robert Williams, David Straker, Linda Baker, Martin Douglas, and Daniel Leeds. Each contact will give you an ID card used to access the security room located in a different sector. Defeat the guards within the security rooms and grab the secret tape units. After you obtain all 6 tape units, you will gain access to the control center. At the control center, you must defeat the guards to destroy the computer and restore order to society. Be careful, Nova, and watch your backside. Well, I'll give it this. It's straightforward. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Play Power Blade. We're going to be playing on normal mode just because I like playing on the normal modes for games. I don't understand why that has no music to it. Either way, starting off, we have a bit of a Megaman-like stage select here where we can choose any of the 6 sectors to go into first, and we're going to start off with Sector 1 and move on upwards as usual. Control-wise, it's fairly standard for an NES game. D-pad is movements, A is jump, B is fire, start pauses, select. Select uses your screen nuke grenades, which you can get throughout the stages. The only real different thing control-wise is that compared to other games of this nature, Nova controls a little bit better in that he can fire in all 8 directions, though he can only fire downwards when you're jumping, if I recall correctly. Diagonally, though, you can do while jumping as long as you have the space. The only exception to that is when you're on 2 ladders, in which case you can only fire horizontally. Nova's main form of attack is boomerangs that he throws forward and then they return. However, at the start, you can't really throw them that far. That is what the power meter there beneath the player health is for on the top of the screen. Whenever you get a star item, that powers up and you can fire your boomerangs farther. However, if you spam fire, you will just use more and more power, and each subsequent boomerang will fly far, not as far. And the thing we got back there that turned us completely blue is the iron suit, but I'll talk about that in a moment because it's time for one of the major gimmicks of the game. Psst! You must be Nova. I'm your contact here. Take this ID card for Sector 1. Good luck. That acts as a checkpoint as well, I believe. That is the ID card that the intro cinematic mentioned. You can't access the boss of any given stage without getting the ID card within the level, and usually they're located in one of the alternate pathways you can take throughout the stages, because the stages aren't linear, barring the final level we'll see next part. They're more so open-ended with loops around to other rooms, just so you can make sure you find the right thing. Now, the iron suit, on the top right, you can actually see it has an individual health bar of 3 hits to itself. You can take those, and you don't have to worry about your actual health decreasing at all. Your boomerangs also just become this power wave that flies all the way across the screen almost when you have your power fully up. It can pierce walls, and I think it's a little bit stronger, but don't quote me on that, because your boomerang can't pass through walls. That's the big thing there. You can also throw more and more boomerangs when you get more power, but at the same time, it's not really worth it to me. because I'll be in this suit a lot of the game. It's actually really easy to get really powered up really quickly in this game, though, because I think power-up drops depend on the amount of enemies you've taken out, so you can get a lot of things for it just within the first stage. The only other thing that's worth mentioning right now, gameplay-wise, is that when you saw me pause earlier, you may have noticed that there was grenades like there was on the top of the screen, but there's also these weird little canisters. Those are, I think they're called, I call them rations like in Metal Gear, but I don't think they're actually rations. But you select them from the menu and you can fully recover your health if you have any. Enemies can also randomly drop health, as is fairly standard for games of this type of variety on the NES, but you don't have to worry about that too much because with the amount of iron suits there are in the game, health is surprisingly plentiful for an NES game. Now we're coming up on the door to the first boss fight, and in the case you didn't find the agent we had to make contact with earlier, the door just wouldn't open for you. You'd have to go back and grab that. Sector 1 ID confirmed. Lock released. Alright, first boss is this random robot. It jumps a little bit, and it fires shots when it's either on the ground or in the air. It can also raise up a shield to block your projectiles, but overall it's a rather easy boss fight. Spam firing, especially when it's in the air, is probably your best bet because it leaves its shield down no matter what while it's in the air. But otherwise, it's a simple first boss. Sort of. And with that, we're going to deactivate the security system here in Sector 1, as well as get our first secret tape, and those are basically just telling you how many stages you've cleared, honestly. As we prepare to move on to Sector 2, something I should note, unlike other games on this system that have stage selects, like Mega Man, where you have certain pros or cons for going to certain stages in certain orders, there's no such thing here. It's straightforward to the end. Notable as well, the area we were just in for that computer, if you get a game over, that's where you also get to see your password. Passwords in this game are saved on the password screen at the moment after you see one, I believe. So you technically have infinite continues in that regard, but if you're about to turn the console off, you still have to turn it. You still have to write it down. Also, I should mention, you're going to see some cuts and transitions at certain points in each level. That's because, even though I played this game through a couple of times, I don't have the level design memorized. And because of that, I have a map up on standby just in case I forget where I have to go next. And that happens at least once per stage, I'd say. Watch out for these platforms, they fall after you step on them, but that's about it. Because they're otherwise fairly standard platforms. In fact, the best way I can compare them is that they are from Bubble Man stage in Mega Man 2. In fact, speaking of which, this looks very familiar. With maybe only one or two exceptions, though, the stages in this game don't really have an individual gimmick to them. They have the different stage designs, and you have to find your way to whatever agent is where. But otherwise, it's fairly straightforward. Now, one thing I definitely want to comment on with this game, the plot at the beginning was relatively straightforward and good enough of a first setup in the era. But in the manual, the description is longer, and almost takes on a B-movie-like approach, because, well, actually, you know what, I'll just read it. In the year 2191, New Earth is a near paradise thanks to the Master Computer, which easily and quietly handles both mundane and complex chores. But today, while the Master Computer's chief security officer, Nova, is home watching a ball game, pass you, pop! The TV starts blasting hot air. Then the red priority comm link in his watch starts flashing. What the? Nova thumbs the go-ahead switch. It's his boss ordering him to volunteer for a dangerous one-man mission to report right away. Now I can guess what this is be about, he mutters as he heads out. Nova learns that the Master Computer has been taken offline by alien terrorists. His boss lays out the mission. Only Nova, master of the legendary Power Blade, has a chance to get the brains of the computer and restored system controls. The Master Computer has 6 databases located in different sectors. Nova will have to enter each sector and contact the local agent to get an ID card. This card will let him get into the security room outside the database. He'll have to fight the guard inside, then withdraw the tape unit. After collecting all 6 tapes, Nova must enter the Master Computer Control Center and battle the most dangerous guards. Then he must bring up the computer. Where the hell did the aliens come from in that? What? Something I should note as well about these weights, their hitbox is a bit weird. The bottom of them have no hitbox whatsoever. It's more so around where the rope starts is where the actual hitbox is, so you can just scoop beneath it, no problem. But yeah, that's a manual. I should note, the big difference between normal and expert mode is the time for each level. Here on normal mode, if you look in the top right, you can see we have just under 1,000 seconds to start. And I think it goes at a realistic time span of 1 second per second. As well, there's no knockback. On expert mode, you only have 300 seconds to battle through each sector, and you have knockback when you get hit. That's about it, honestly. Honestly, expert mode isn't even that bad. I just wanted to play the game on normal. Alright, boss 2 is this robot dragon, which will do a buzzsaw motion either in the air, fire a fireball, or do a buzzsaw motion across the ground. You can jump over the ground, and you can duck under the air, I believe, is how you're supposed to take care of that. Again, though, spam firing just takes care of it pretty quickly. Now, something that's interesting about this particular game is our version in the States versus the Japanese version. What we know as Power Blade is known over there as Power Blazer, and the game is so different, they're practically different games. The graphics were a lot more anime and shibified, the mechanics were a lot slower, the stages were more linear, enemies had way more health. It's one of the weird cases where a meddling localization team just made the game outright better, because Power Blazer is tedious to play through in my eyes, because it's just so slow. But that said, knowing me, I'll probably do an LP of that out of boredom at some point, because it is strangely satisfying how different they are. With that said, though, Power Blade is definitely the better of the two, because they just improve the mechanics to an extreme degree. If you want a full comparison online, I think there's probably some sources online that have a good version of it, but the best one I've found, Hardcore Gaming 101, they have a pretty good graphical showcase that shows the differences between certain boss fights, the stage select. That little very silent section right after we press start on the title screen to get to the stage selects where Nova lands on that canopy. That's just the only intro cinematic in the Japanese version. It's just kind of strange how much they changed for this. I mean, don't get me wrong, Taito definitely made the right choice, but it's weird. Most other version differences in this era weren't... Well, I guess there was some rebalancing here and there, but they weren't usually rebalancings to this degree, because even the stage designs are completely different, except for maybe stage 7? Other games usually just got the minor graphical overhauls and translation changes. And I think you can definitely tell that this was definitely the more popular game of the two, because Power Blazer was a one-and-done game. Power Blade has a sequel. And Power Blade 2 is a game, that is for certain. I think, I'll probably talk about this more in depth whenever I eventually get to it, but I think Power Blade 2 makes several steps forward while also taking about 6 steps back, because the level design is made to be more straightforward and each stage is more unique because of that, and there's even incentive to go into certain stages in certain orders, but to make up for that, the difficulty was increased about 8-fold. Health honestly isn't that big of a problem in this game. Enemies drop health with enough regularity, and life refills, even though there's only 1 per stage, is easy enough to find that it never becomes too big of a problem. If anything, the biggest source of death in this game is the platforming. Because Nova controls well in the air, don't get me wrong. But some of the jumps they want you to make are a little precise. Sometimes you have to do the Mega Man thing where you're standing halfway off the platform to be able to make the jump. It's just very uncomfortable for a game like this, especially given the size of Nova's sprite compared to the screen. It just doesn't feel right. With that said, though, we're heading into Boss 3, and I forget which one this is. Oh, it's the honeycomb. This thing is just going to be firing bees at you. That's all it does. The thing you need to destroy in this boss is the honeycomb itself. Whenever one of the little comb doors opens up, you fire into it, and after enough hits, each door will be destroyed, and that sector will no longer spawn bees. This fight gets easier the farther in you get, because there's less bees coming at you, and the doors will open more often. because I think there's a maximum amount of bees that can be on screen at a time just due to sprite limits. I want to say it's about 3 to 5. But just spam fire again, and you should be good. Shooting upwards, very recommended here, of course. Because if you jump and shoot, you're just not going to make it. And that's Sector 3. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in Part 2, we're going to go finish the game. See you guys then.